Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome to the Fiqh of Zakah. On the Fiqh of Zakah, we've been looking at Zakah itself, its detailed explanation, the definition of this topic. We were looking at the ruling that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given, and we went into the types of wealth that formulate this Zakah. Going through this topic with me, of course, mashallah, our guide through this, Sheikh Muhammad Salah. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh.
Wa alaikum salam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Jameel, it's my pleasure. Thank you so much.
Jazakallah khair, Sheikh. So previously, Sheikh, we've looked at the topic of zakah, starting really from the beginning, looking at the definition and the types of wealth and so forth. There's one area that we touched upon, but I think it's very good for us just to maybe expand it slightly for our viewers, and for myself too, Sheikh, is that when we look at the ruling that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has given us of zakah, we need to sometimes know or understand the hikmah behind it, the wisdom behind it. What is this wisdom, ya Sheikh?
Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. Alhamdulillahi wa kafa. Wa salamun ala ibadihi alladhina astafa. La siyama al-Mustafa sallallahu alayhi wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam tasliman kathira. Praise be to Allah alone. We praise Him and we seek His help. Whomsoever Allah guides is the truly guided one. And whomsoever Allah leads astray, no one can show him guidance. May the best peace and blessings be upon Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him. Everything that Allah the Almighty ordains is for a very wise reason. Whether the ordainment is pertaining an act of worship in order to maintain the relationship between the servant and his creator, or to regulate and organize the relationship between the servant and the rest of the living creatures, humans, animals, and everything that exists. With regards to the ordainment of the zakah, it has been ordained, as Allah stated and the Prophet explained, for very noble causes. Number one, the main purpose is purification. Purification of what? Purification of wealth and purification of the heart and the soul of the person who pays the zakah. خُذْ مِنْ أَمْوَالِهِمْ صَدَقَةً تُطَهِّرُهُمْ وَتُزَكِّيهِمْ بِهَا. As we explained previously in one hadith, in order to protect yourself against the evil part that's hidden in your wealth, give its zakah. You want to cure your sick beloved one, give extra charity. You want to protect yourself against calamities by giving any charity, particularly the hidden and secret charity. Then this is the part that's pertaining you. There is another part pertaining the payer, which is oneself is inclined into withholding. This is a human nature. إن الإنسان خلق هلوعا إذا مسه الشر جزوعا وإذا مسه الخير منوعا. This is a human nature, that man is created very impatient. When some bad happens to him, he's frightened, he's impatient, he complains. And when some good touches him, he inherited plenty of wealth, or Allah opened for him the doors of wealth and so on, and he became rich, then he is manu'a. This is most of human beings.
So true. People want to hold on to something.
Withhold. Why?
Grasp onto it.
Because, I'm not sure what will happen in the future. I want to secure the future of my children.
Yeah.
Then after I secure their future, the future of my grandchildren and great-grandchildren and so on. And that's why people actually tend to earn from haram, even though they don't need.
So true.
It is a greed within ourselves. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, when He spoke generally about the human nature, said, إِلَّا الْمُصَلِّينَ. Not everybody is like that, except certain people. Those who pray with the khushu', those who recognize the wealth of the poor and the needy, the right of the poor and the needy in their wealth. It is not that you're doing them a favor, that is their right. So, purifying oneself and training himself to be generous. Okay? It is one of the means of giving gratitude and thanks to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, by giving any charity. Whenever you happen to be a millionaire, and the zakah rate is 2.5% on wealth, so you're good in math. On $1 million, for instance, how much is the zakah due?
What's that, 25,000?
Exactly, $25,000. Please, stop looking at how much you're paying. When you write a check and you say $25,000 one shot, now don't look at it this way. Look at it the other way around. how much is saved for you? You have $1 million. Who gave you that? It is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The difference between a believer and a disbeliever, the disbeliever such as Qarun, whom Allah made very wealthy, said, I made it all because of my intelligence. إِنَّمَا أُوتِيتُهُ عَلَى عِلْمٍ عِنْدِي. So I don't have, and I'm not supposed to give the lazy people. They're poor because they're lazy. So, well, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala can show such arrogant person that it is not his intelligence nor hard work, because there are people who are working much harder than you and they don't have a fraction of what you have. It is all from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. يَرْزُقُ مَنْ يَشَاءُ بِغَيْرِ حِسَابٍ الْقَابِض الْبَاسِطِ. He straightens the provision of somebody and he expands the provision for somebody else. So when you give with pleasure and happiness, this is a mean of showing gratitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Furthermore, it shows solidarity and it spreads the welfare amongst the members of the entire community. Because when the rich gives the poor would stop envying the rich. And he would pray for him. Because when he prays for him, may Allah bless you, may Allah give you more and more, may Allah bless you in your wealth. Why? Because I know that I have a right in your wealth. So when I pray for you, and when I wish you best, that would reflect on me as well. But when somebody is miser, the poor people, even those who are working for him, they envy him. They invoke Allah against him. So it's wrong because he's miser. So solidarity is very, very important and one of the noble causes of mandating the zakah. Helping and assisting the poor. Many times I watch on programs, there is a commercial showing that some parts of the world there is a flood. Just recently, 15 million people have been affected with the flood in Pakistan. Right? There are others somewhere else, they eat a bite from the sandwich and they throw the rest in the trash. There comes the zakah and the voluntary charity in order to bring to our attention the need of the needy ones. It is not optional. It is not because you're generous. You must assist them. You must chip in. If there is what the Prophet ﷺ started 1400 years ago, Baytul Mal, where all the donations, the voluntary and the mandatory, will be collected to assist the poor and those who are in need, you would not find a single poor person. And there will be plenty ready for crisis.
So basically you're saying in a very political statement, Sheikh, because the world is dying, in some parts of the world people are dying for poverty. We have all these slogans, the war on poverty, stopping poverty. In Africa we have poverty, in parts of Southeast Asia we have poverty. What you're basically saying, and correct me here, is that to the world that Islam has a solution for you if you implement it, which is give your alms tax, give this to the poor, and you will solve this problem. They won't be poor people. Is that what you're saying?
Definitely, because Islam regulates every aspect in our life. So when Islam rules over what's happening in some of the Western countries, where I have seen that they ship tons and tons of wheat, of grains, of corn, and they dump them in the middle of the ocean.
Just to keep the prices
to maintain the prices. They spend millions of dollars in order to collect the milk and then condense it, evaporate the water in it, condense it, pack it, then ship it, then once again dump it in the middle of the ocean. Same with many products in order to maintain the prices. While if you just flip the channel, you will watch every day on the news, there are hundreds and thousands of people who are literally dying. Why? Because there are greedy people. For their personal interest, they kill others. Do not say, this is my right. No, it is not your right. Your right is to consume what's sufficient for you, and what you work hard for, you maintain it, but you pay the zakat, you own it. And also assist the poor if you would like to give extra charity. But basically, the crisis which the entire world is going through, and where somewhere there are people dying of hunger and thirst due to poverty, because the rich people are not paying their zakah.
Okay, Sheikh. Now, the rich people are not paying zakah, so now we know that they've got to pay zakah. But is it only the rich people, Sheikh? I mean, who pays the zakah?
What determines that something in the fiqh is known as an-nisab. That really determines who should pay the zakah and who is entitled to take the zakah and accept it. So the question should be, who should pay the zakah? Number one, zakah is due on the Muslim, not the non-Muslim. Obviously, on the Day of Judgment, if non-Muslim disbelieve in Islam, would be held accountable for everything, such as the prayers and fasting and all of that. But here, it will not be accepted except from a Muslim. And that's why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, وَمَا مَنَعَهُمْ أَن تُقْبَلَ مِنْهُمْ نَفَقَاتُهُمْ إِلَّا أَنَّهُمْ كَفَرُوا بِاللَّهِ وَبِرَسُولِهِ. So Allah would not accept the charity of a non-believer. So the one who is addressed with the zakah and whose charity will be accepted whether voluntary or mandatory is al-Muslim, person who is a Muslim, whether male or a female. The second is freedom, and that's stated since there was slavery. So a slave is not entitled to pay the zakah because he does not even own himself. So any possession of his is owned by his master. And the third condition is possessing a nisab. A nisab is a minimum threshold which is determined by the Sharia. And that will determine whether this person is rich or poor. There is a nisab for gold and silver or any currency. There is a nisab for livestock. And there is a nisab for everything, even for fruits and vegetations. So once the person possesses a nisab, and this nisab exceeds his basic needs, himself and his family, of housing, transportation, of service, of food, of drink, of clothes, of all of that. So the nisab is extra, then it is zakatable. And that nisab must be maintained for an entire lunar year. So once I maintain the nisab, the minimum zakatable amount, and a whole year rounds up, lunar year, 12 Islamic or lunar months, then this money is zakatable and the person should pay zakah on it. Obviously, inshallah, we'll explain in details the nisab and the how and all of that.
Jazakallah khair, Shaykh. Okay, this is a good time for you to take a break. We're going to be taking a break and we're going to come back and speak about this nisab in a bit more detail. So get your pens and your papers together and start writing down the notes. We'll see you in a couple of minutes. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Give a little of yourself, cure your greed, purify your wealth.
Our schools, what is missing? Join Dr. Mamdoor Muhammad in Our Schools, What is Missing? He will be discussing the most common mistakes made in our educational systems.
What type of teaching they teach him, what they say to him, what books they select for him to read, what things that he listens to, what games that he begins to play with.
How to perfect the work in the school.
Our goal is to improve our school.
And we'll see practical solutions from the Book of Allah and the Sunnah of His Messenger.
Most of the criteria for success for us had been designed for us by our Creator.
Our Schools, What is Missing? In Ramadan on Huda TV.
There's so much that we can do for so many who are in need. Give our time, give our wealth, give our love, give ourselves.
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Welcome back to the Fiqh of Zakah. Sheikh, just before the break there, we went into the important topics, or that we see as very important topics in the study of Zakah, or the understanding, which is who go about paying Zakah. You spoke about the person who was a Muslim. You also went into the area of somebody who's free, for example. This was a very important point. When we speak about the person who's a Muslim, what's the reason why somebody who's not a Muslim is not asked to pay zakah, Shaykh?
As I quoted the verse, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, وَمَا مَنَعَهُمْ أَن تُقْبَلَ مِنْهُمْ نَفَقَاتُهُمْ إِلَّا أَنَّهُمْ كَفَرُوا. So basically, you're addressing somebody who does not believe in the oneness of Allah. So even if he gives in his charity, his charity is not accepted. If you recall the hadith of Mu'adh ibn Jabal, when a Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam deployed him to Yemen, he said, one step at a time. Inform them about the oneness of Allah, and if they respond to them, tell them about the salah, then afterward the zakah. So it doesn't make any sense to ask somebody to pay zakah as an act of worship while he does not believe in the Lord, does not believe in Allah nor in His oneness. So this is ibadah, is not just a social duty or a social mean of cooperation and showing solidarity, but mainly it is an act of worship. It doesn't mean that if somebody came forward and he wants to donate his entire wealth, I would tell him no, it will be taken from him, thank you so much, but I will appreciate that and will thank him, but by Allah it will not be accepted. And what really matters is that we will not go to a non-Muslim and ask him, you gotta pay zakah because you live in a Muslim country. Instead, there is another thing which is called jizya, for instance, if a non-Muslim, similar to tax, happen to be living in a Muslim country.
Jazakallah khair. Okay, so now we've gone through these two. We also started looking at the nisab. So you started speaking to us about the calculation. Now, there's always a word that's always put with nisab. Sometimes you hear it, and I did hear it, which is hawl. Now, what does this constitute, Sheikh? What does this mean to us?
The word hawl means a year. Particularly a lunar year, because we go about by the moon. And why not the solar year? Because the lunar year is shorter than the solar year. It is the beginning of every month is determined by the appearance of the crescents. Once it's born, then this is the beginning of the new Islamic month. So when we round up 12 Islamic months, this is a whole calendar, a whole year. So if somebody possessed the nisab, or an amount of money which is, what we call it, zakatable, he possessed certain amount of gold or silver or cash or trade of goods or livestock, which is zakatable. Today is the beginning of Sha'ban or Ramadan. Then the beginning of Sha'ban next year, the zakah is due. We don't go about by June, July, or any of the solar months.
So this whole, this lunar month, is it on all the types of wealth, Sheikh? All the types of wealth that we have spoken
Thank
about?
you for asking this question. This is a very important information. That only pertains zakah on an-naqdain, gold and silver, and anything that's related to them, any currency, trade of goods, livestock, but not on fruits and vegetations, or what we call it crops, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, آتوا حقه يوم حصاده. The zakat will be on the crops once we harvest them. So it doesn't go about by the year. It doesn't have a hawl. In the same year we can produce more than one crop. Also with regards to الركاز والمعادن, الركاز, the treasures, once it's fetched out, and similarly the precious minerals, then it is zakatable. We don't have to wait for an entire year to round up. Once we dug it out or fetched out, then we'll pay the zakat due on it.
So if this is the case, you said something there that this 1 year, certain types of wealth, what do you do when your types of wealth, for example, maybe a very misunderstood concept, but the types of wealth go up and down. And I'll give an example. There you have me, for example. I put some money in, say, some stocks and shares, and it's beyond the nisab, and it's at the beginning of a year, for example, and then during that year, I lose that money, for example. Okay, so it fluctuates. And then by the end of that year, maybe I'm in a minus, I'm in debt. How does that work, Sheikh?
Well, that's a good point. And that's why we mentioned the conditions and who should pay the zakah. There are two conditions said, al-nisab and al-hawl. And they're very much related to each other. So if somebody possesses the nisab, the minimum threshold, which is zakatable, then he went bankrupt. Then once again he started the business, and business boomed, and it went beyond the nisab. Al-Jumhur, the vast majority of the Muslim jurists, Shafi'i, Ahmed, and Malik, said then he shall start a new hawl from the time where he possessed the new nisab. Imam Abu Hanifa said no. As long as he possessed the nisab one day, then we count from that day. Then if the wealth or the nisab fluctuates, or his wealth and possession or investment and trade of goods dips below the nisab, as long as it goes up again within the same year, then he counts on the very beginning. And obviously the opinion of Al-Jumhur is more right, which is the nisab has to be maintained throughout the entire Islamic year, the lunar calendar. So if it dips below the nisab at any say time, then once again he is enriched, or he possesses the nisab or more. You start counting from the moment that you possess the nisab, and it was not affected throughout the entire hawl or lunar year.
So that person in debt, for example, he's now maybe on the other side. He may be the one who can take zakah. Is that not true? If now he's the one who's...
You've taken us to another area, which is debt.
Yes.
Right? Or zakah on debt. This is a very important subject, and we should really have an entire episode for it. But anyway, we got to address the creditor and the debtor. Because the creditor, the one who will lend somebody money. Whenever now he's ready to pay the zakah on his position and he's rich and everything, he's going to ask a question. Well, there is some money which I credited or I lent to somebody. Do I have to pay zakah on it? We will answer him as follows. We will say, well, it depends. If the debtor is somebody who is paying on time, who acknowledges the debt, and he does not deny it, and he pays on regular basis. So in this case, even though you did not collect your debt yet, first of all we say, thank you so much for lending somebody money, because this is a great righteous act. But you have to pay the zakah on that money, on the loan, which you credited to somebody, because it's yours. Unless, if this person is bankrupt and he said, you know what, I'm sorry, I can't pay. I cannot pay. If you want to take me to court, do whatever you like, because I have no money, I'm broke. He filed for bankruptcy. Or if this person is wicked, and since he did not write any documentation, he said, well, what money you're talking about? I didn't take anything from you. So in these two conditions, we call it a dead debt. Because you're not expecting to collect it. It's over. Your reward is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So in this condition, it is not fair to ask you to pay zakah on wealth which you're not expecting to collect it, even though it's yours and it is your right. But the scholar said, but what if the person, the debtor, one day recognized the truth and he said, Alhamdulillah, Allah blessed me with money, thank you so much, and here is your money. So in this condition, you pay the zakah on it for 1 year only. But the years, if he kept the money for 10 years, 20 years, as long as he denied it and he did not acknowledge it, or you did not expect to collect the money back, you don't have to pay on all of those years. You'd only pay the zakah once you collect the money for one past year.
Okay, now that's a very good answer, because it comes into another area, Sheikh. I'm sorry for giving you all these questions.
No problem.
But they're popping up. I'm sure that our viewers are thinking, so what about somebody, like you said, money, you just said it returns to him. What about somebody who doesn't have money in the first place? They are the one that zakah is given to, and then all of a sudden they take money. For example, an orphan. An orphan may inherit money. Now, this inheritance of his money, is this zakatable?
Okay. Zakah on the wealth of an orphan is a subject by itself. Meaning, we agreed that any person possesses the nisab will start counting from the day where he have achieved the nisab. Okay? So an orphan today inherited several $1 million. So from that day we start counting 1 lunar year. But the question is, well, he's an orphan. He doesn't invest any money, and his money is sitting in the bank or in a saving account. Correct. But there is a zakah due on his wealth once it reached the nisab or exceeded it. Why? Umar ibn al-Khattab, may Allah be pleased with him, narrated that you should invest he was addressing the guardians or those who look after the wealth of orphans. He said you should invest in their wealth lest the zakah may devour it over years. So even though he is an orphan, but al-jumhur, the vast majority of the scholars said, well, yes, there is zakah due on the wealth of the orphan if it reaches or exceeds the nisab as well.
Jazakallah Shaykh for all your advice today and explanation. We've come to another end of the episode on Fiqh of Zakah, very important topic. We learned so much from it. I hope you've been taking notes. It's a topic, like we said before, it's the third pillar of Islam. It's mentioned over 30 times just in the Quran alone in certain areas, and over 20 times when it comes to Salah. A very important topic. Please join us next time on the Fiqh of Zakah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam.